What is going on, everybody? This is your friendly neighborhood coach, and this is the next installment of the Locker Room. Listen, it's been a great week, as every week is always a great week. I'm glad to be with y'all. All right. I'm going to take some time in this episode because there's a lot that we need to cover. All right. That's why I'm on a couple minutes late. I do apologize, but I need to be able to get all my thoughts together so that I can give y'all clear and conscious content when it comes to Cleveland sports. All right. So listen, y'all know me. I'm Cleveland born, Cleveland bred. All right. And I love my Cleveland sports. And we're going to talk about a few things today. Number one, let's talk about the Cleveland Browns. Tood Munkin had a presser this week. And, it's one part that's particular that I want to focus in on. And it's not what you guys think, but we're going to talk about it. Myles Garrett, no show for voluntary workouts. Okay. We're going to have a discussion on that. I'm going to give my opinion on it. And we'll go from there. All right. Will the Browns win next year? That's something that a lot of folks are not talking about. Why? Because the Browns, have not been in a culture of winning. All right. But there's a possibility that they could do some things next year. We'll discuss that. Are the Browns trading down in the NFL draft? I think that's coming around the corner. I have my thoughts on that. Then we'll switch over to the Cavs. They played a home and home with the Atlanta Hawks. We'll discuss that a little bit. They've locked up the playoff spot. We'll go through the current playoff spots and even the play-in. And then we'll switch over to the Guardians. Okay. They play the Atlanta Braves today. They've been a 2-game stretch. I think it's a 3-game stretch with the Braves, not sure, but a 2-game stretch with the Braves, and we'll talk about that. And then my coach's rant. My coach's rant is all this beef that's taking place within social media. I'm going to discuss it all because it's absolutely disgusting to me, and it's just a waste of people's time. But we'll talk about it. So sit back, grab your favorite beverage, and tune into the Locker Room. Of course, the Locker Room is sponsored by Preston Bless Juice Bar. Preston Bless is a juicing company that creates healthy juices and that will create juices that's based upon any health issues that you may have. They're 100% freshly squeezed, freshly natural. And so if you go to roaddoghealth.com, you can order your freshly pressed juice. You can also subscribe to Preston Bless, and where you can get your juices on a weekly basis. So go to roaddoghealth.com and get your fresh juice today. So the Locker Room is sponsored by Pressed and Blessed. All right? All right, let's get into it, guys. Listen, Tood Munkin had a presser this week. And there were a lot of questions asked of Coach Munkin. But one of the things that, he was asked a question prior to, and he led into what I thought was a very interesting comment. First of all, he missed the coach's picture. Okay. Wasn't his fault. He was going to get a haircut so that he could take the picture. They moved the time, which he did discuss, and I'm not going to get into that. To me, if he's the first-time head coach, he's getting ready to take this photograph, it would have been, to me, courtesy to let him know that you changed the time. But that's not what I want to get into, and that's not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is what he said after that. I thought was very telling. Okay. So Coach really got into it, and I love his response. So here's Tood Munkin.
For you to make a good impression on them, so they know who you are on that first meeting you had?
Ultimately, I wanted them to know what our goals are and what we're here for as coaches. That's it. It's really simple. I said at the beginning, I mean, what business are we in? We're in the development business of our players to help them aspire to achieve all of their dreams that they've ever worked on. There's nothing more exciting for a position coach than to take a player and develop them, and that down the road, they get paid. They get a second contract, be it here or somewhere else. That says, I helped. There's nothing like that. Just like coaching, there's
So he's talking about development, all right? And further along down in this press conference, Coach Munkin talked about winning. He talked about the way that you change the narrative in an organization is by winning, is by putting in the work to get players prepared to win. So when it comes to coaching, and for those that don't know, I've coached high school sports. I coached high school sports for over 20 years. Okay. And it really does not compare to professional sports, but in certain instances it does. So for me, in coaching, of course, you want to win, and it's about wins and losses. But when it comes to developing good players, that was something that I always took into consideration, and something that I always loved to do was, coaching kids up. And it really tested my coaching ability. And so I love what Coach Munkin had said when it came to developing players, developing good players. All right. Having players wanting to be in the facility. Okay. Having players that want to get better. I've always said this, and I said this on 3 the Hard Way, our sports talk. Okay. If you haven't subscribed to that, I urge you to please go and subscribe to 3 the Hard Way Sports Talk, sports podcast. But for me, in coaching, developing players and creating a culture, what I think people are missing when it comes to the Cleveland Browns is the fact that Tood Munkin had been in that organization before, understood the dysfunctional nature within the organization, but he has now returned. It is now his first coaching job. And what does he want to do? He wants to change the culture. How do you do that? You do that by preparing players to be great. You do that by coaching players up. You do that by putting players in position to be successful. And this is what I think that people are missing in Cleveland right now is Coach Munkin is talking about culture. He's talking about creating a culture of winning. And the way that you do that is you coach players up. You put in a system that people can follow. Why do you believe that the New England Patriots have been successful? Yes, you can talk about Coach Belichick. Yes, you can talk about Tom Brady. Okay? But you got to talk about the foundation of the culture that they laid. And even Mike Vrabel now has continued the Patriot way. When you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers in their history have had culture, a winning culture. And those that did not subscribe or prescribe to that winning culture were no longer Steelers. This has been the problem with the Cleveland Browns for many, many years. Is there, since at least 99, there has not been culture that has been implemented and put in that organization. Kevin Stefanski didn't have it. Hugh Jackson did not have it. Okay. They did not have culture. They just went in and coached football. I have coached, like I said, high school football, and I've coached up under two of the greatest high school coaches here in Arizona history. I live here in Arizona. One is Kelly Epley, and the other is George Martinez, head coaches, okay? And another one is Jim Shields, all right? These are guys that I coached up under, that I coached with. And the one thing that they established with whatever team that we ever had was they established a culture, a mindset, a thought process into winning football games. And in that process, we learned how to develop players. And when you can take a player that may not be as great, and then you turn them into a good player, into a bona fide superstar, that to me is the most rewarding thing. And so when you listen to Coach Munkin speak, you have to understand the fire that's in his belly. I don't worry about all the expletives that he uses. That's what football coaches do. And if you get offended when you're sitting in press conferences and he's dropping F-bombs and he's dropping those bombs, then you shouldn't be watching the game. You should not be into football, because that's the football way. Those are old school, gridiron, hard-nosed football coaches. And those coaches will bring the best out of players if those players want to be the best. Okay? And speaking of the best, of course they have voluntary training camp, or not training camp, but voluntary workouts, okay? Voluntary. But Myles Garrett did come up. Myles Garrett did not attend voluntary workouts, okay? And of course, people are in an uproar when it comes to Myles Garrett not being there. And I understand both aspects of it, but I do have a take on it. And I'm going to give you my take in a moment. But first, let's listen to Mary Kay Cabot on 92.3 The Fan. By the way, that presser from Tood Munkin was through the Cleveland Browns. So shout out to the Cleveland Browns. But Mary Kay Cabot here on 92.3 The Fan.
Today, like today, a tradition unlike any other.
It's not necessarily a big deal, but I think it's noteworthy. I do think that when you hear guys like Tyson Campbell and Carson Schwessinger talk about why they're here and why it's important, and the same thing with Denzel Ward. And when you hear Tood Munkin talk about the camaraderie and the bonding that takes place at this time of year, I do think it sends a message if you can show up at least for the first few days. So if I were Myles Garrett, I probably would have come for at least this first week. Then you can kind of slide away for a little while and come back and hit some of the highlights. But being there at the beginning, I think, is really good for a lot of reasons.
Do we think Myles and new head coach Tood Munkin will actually meet each other before the first day of actual training camp?
Yes, absolutely, because they have a mandatory veteran minicamp that he has to attend, and that is June 9th through 11th. Now, I'm very curious to see if he attends the voluntary minicamp, the bonus camp that they've been given, which is April 21st through the 23rd. That's for teams with new head coaches, and it's really an opportunity to put these guys out there in 11-on-11s early in the process and kind of see what you have and put the playbook out on the grass a little bit. So I'll be curious to see if he does that. It's really not something that he usually would normally do. I don't think it's part of his paradigm to show up for that, but you never really know. So we'll see how that goes. But I thought Todd Munkin, his answer to my question to him about this topic was pretty telling when he said, I would be there. That's how I'm wired. I wouldn't miss it. But he did add, of course, that he knows that Miles will be ready.
Do you think he's annoyed then?
Coach Munkin said he'll be ready. Now, what people don't understand is that by Myles Garrett not being there, he has forfeited $1 million. Okay. He was going to get $1 million bonus if he showed up. He didn't show up. Okay. So he forfeits that $1 million. That's like a drop in the bucket to a guy who has a $40 million contract. All right. Now, I came from Mary Kay Cabot's aspect. All right. Now, I want to really go into coming from a player's aspect. Here is Shannon Sharp, Ocho Cinco, and Joe Johnson. And here is their show. And they talked about Myles Garrett as well. I want to get different perspectives on this. So I want you guys to understand. So these are two of them are former NFL players. So let's get a perspective of it.
The program was 13 weeks. It was Monday through Thursday. Friday through Sunday was off. 9 times out of 10, that Friday through Sunday, I'm going back to Miami. And I would always do the morning work on a Thursday, and I get on a flight Thursday evening, fly to Miami, relax here, don't do anything, probably do some training as well, relax Thursday, then back on the plane Sunday night, and then repeat it. It was a 13-week program. It was fun. I really enjoyed it because I'm a gym rat, Joe. Hell, I can't stay out the gym now. Now I don't play nothing. So you could imagine back then when I was playing. So I was excited to go to the off-season program and just see the fellas, man. It was cool to see the fellas.
Hey, I remember in my rookie early on, because Dan, that was a big thing for Dan.
Yeah.
You had to be there. I was like, man, I sure hope I can get good enough one day I don't have to come to this ish. As soon as I got good enough, I had to come to the ish.
Yeah.
Hey, you one of our leaders. I'm leaving from Atlanta. That's where I'm leaving from. I'm leaving for Atlanta. No. Y'all not paying. Y'all paying him to lead.
Mm-hmm.
He's making a big.
That was Shannon Sharp, Hall of Famer. Okay. Chad Johnson, a.k.a. Chad Ochocinco, very good wide receiver in the NFL. And, of course, everybody know about ISO Joe in the NBA, Joe Johnson. So I wanted to get a couple different perspectives, all right? And I got one more that's coming. You guys got to tune in to 3 The Hard Way Sports Podcast. My man L Train, Lionel Jones, and the captain, Terrence Alston. T-Money's going to have a take on that. And we've talked about this. We actually talked about this last year because Myles Garrett didn't show up last year, okay? And so here's my take on this. Should Myles Garrett have been in voluntary camp? Yes. Only because you have a brand new head coach. You have a brand new defensive coordinator. You have a brand new defensive line coach. Yes, you should be there. But am I feeling some type of way because he's not there? No. Because if you've seen Myles Garrett's off-season workouts, if you've seen what Myles Garrett goes through off-season, when Todd Munkin said he'd be prepared, he's not lying. He didn't show up last year. And what happened last year? Myles Garrett set the all-time single-season sack record. But he wasn't in voluntary OTAs then. So I'm not feeling some type of way because he's not there now. He's going to show up. He's going to be about 270, 275. He's going to run a 4.40 at 6'5". He's going to be able to bench press a small village. Okay. and squat a small preschool. He will be ready for the season. Now, could this be a little temper tantrum because Jim Schwartz is not his DC? It could be. But as I've said before, and I will say again, that's why I said I'm going to take time and let this show breathe. I want you to understand something. Myles Garrett signed a $40 million contract when he had an opportunity to get out of Cleveland. He had 40 million reasons that his mind changed. So when you've done that, I don't want to hear any complaints out of the camp of Myles Garrett at all. Now, like I said, should he have been at voluntary OTAs? Yes, because it's a brand new coach, because it's a brand new coaching staff, he could have. When you're talking camaraderie, you heard Shannon Sharpe. Shannon Sharpe could care less about camaraderie. It's about football. Okay? The professional wrestler Kevin Nash said this. He said, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make money. Okay? Myles Garrett is going to be prepared for the season. I am ill-concerned whether he has shown up for voluntary OTAs. I'm ill-concerned about that. Now, like I said, should he have shown up? Yes, because you have a brand new coaching staff, you should show up. Okay? And miss me with those people that's saying he's a leader. I've said this time and time again. Myles Garrett is not a leader of men. That is not how he is built. Just like Evan Mobley is not built for the Cavaliers to be the man. Myles Garrett is not built to be a leader of men. Myles Garrett does his leadership by his play on the field. That's Myles Garrett. I need folks to understand that. And there's nothing wrong with that. There are people who are built to lead like Ray Lewis, and there are people who are built to lead like Myles Garrett. There are people who are built to lead like Tim Duncan, and there are people who are built to lead like Kevin Garnett. There's two different types. Okay? You have your non-vocal leaders and you have your vocal leaders. I understand that because I'm more of a vocal leader. I'm more of a, hey, get up, get it together. Okay? But people are making such a big deal out of Myles Garrett not being there. Now, I'm going to take a phrase that my man L Train would say, and I know he's going to say this again. Optics. It's the optics. It's what people see. People, because of his contract, perceive him to be a leader. So they believe that because he is a leader based off a contract, based off a status, that he should be there. And I don't disagree with that take. However, if I didn't think Myles Garrett would be prepared for this upcoming season, then I would say it's a problem. But because I know, and beyond a shadow of a doubt to me, that Myles Garrett will be prepared, I'm really not worried about him showing up for voluntary OTAs. And the question that was asked, do you think that Tood Munkin is pissed off because he wasn't there? No. It's voluntary, guys. Can we understand that that's what that word means? That means if you want to come, you can come. If you don't, then you don't. When we had workouts in the summer, those summer workouts were voluntary. They were voluntary workouts. Now, I would be a hypocrite if I didn't tell you that when I was coaching high school ball, there were kids that I told, yes, they said it's voluntary, but you better have your behind here. period. Now, if that was the case, then Todd Munkin should have communicated that. I believe if Todd Munkin would have communicated that, Myles Garrett would have been there. But he didn't. So he didn't. Now, like I said, if Myles Garrett came into training camp weighing 340 pounds, totally out of shape, couldn't get around the corner, then I'd have a humongous problem. But because I know Myles Garrett is built like a Greek statue, and he moves like a man half his size, I don't have a problem with Myles Garrett not being there. But once again, I believe because the media doesn't have anything to talk about, that they make up these narratives. They create stuff because they're just trying to, they're trying to get clicks. But that's not how we should get down. Let's talk about some relevant stuff. To me, that's not relevant. I mean, it is. Let me not be dismissive of it. It is, but it isn't. Because like I said, he's missed voluntary OTAs the last couple of years. He's missed out on those. Okay. And like I said, last year he missed out on the OTA and he ended up setting a single season record. And the way that this team is built, the way that this defense is built, he possibly, I'm not saying that he is, but he possibly could do it again. Okay. All right. So staying with the Browns. There is a distinct possibility, and people are not really talking about it. There is a possibility that the Browns could actually win next year. They're building a young core with a head coach who is going to be disciplined, who's going to be strategic, who seems like he's the type of coach that will get in your face, who's going to motivate these guys to go out and win. And I know the Browns have been, chosen to become last in the AFC again in the division. But I don't think, and I'm not throwing any records out here yet. It's too early. But I don't think they're going to be a slouch type of team. And, understanding that Garrett Bush thinks the same way. So shout out to G. Bush.
Factory is 27 when you got players right now that's ready to compete. You got a defense that could be possibly one of the best in the league. If you can get anything and you expect Todd Munkin to be able to infuse his playbook, the creativity, and to coach up the quarterback position, which you wouldn't have brought him in if you didn't think he could do that. He's coming off coaching with Lamar Jackson and on MVP type seasons. Why would you not think that he can put the Browns in the best position offensively to do some things? I'm just asking you. You let me know, am I crazy? Because this is the most excited I've been in a long time for a Cleveland Browns team with a young core, a young roster.
So shout out to G. Bush, host of the Barbershop and on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Shout out to him. But let's talk about this a little bit. With the core that is being created. Now, we're not talking about the defensive side. The defensive side is pretty much solid. With MJ Emerson returning, then you have Tyson Campbell on one side, you have Denzel Ward on the other. You have that tremendous defensive line who now Mason Graham is going into his second year. Mason Graham is going into his second year, and then you have, of course, Miles will be back. Isaiah McGuire, okay. You got Carson Schlesinger, second year. So I'm not talking about the defense, but you see what Andrew Berry and Todd Munkin are doing on the offensive side of the ball. They have now brought in offensive linemen, and I've heard, people talk about, well, we don't know how this line is going to gel and how they're going to be able to get off the football and things of that nature. Listen, I think sometimes with Andrew Berry, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. So he realized that there's a weakness and he's addressed it. But you people, and I'm not saying all the fans of the locker room, but I'm saying that you know who I'm talking about. There are people out there that have a problem with the fact that he addressed a weakness. What is Andrew Berry supposed to do? And y'all know I'm not a big Andrew Berry fan, but what he has done so far, I will keep saying, is outstanding because he addressed a need. I don't know what else this man has to do. He addressed a weakness, which was the offensive line. Okay? He addressed an old offensive line. Okay? Jack Conklin, old. Wyatt Teller wasn't old, but Wyatt Teller was not a good run blocker. No, I'm sorry. He wasn't a good pass blocker. So they moved on from Wyatt Teller. Now, there's some other circumstances that I won't get into. I think it was, some people got soured on Wyatt Teller because Wyatt Teller was a big supporter of Shedeur Sanders. I'm just going to leave that there. Ethan Posick, he tore his Achilles, but he's older. Okay. And then you got Joel Bitonio, who, as I've said before, had a tremendous career. Great guard. But his last 2 years, he was absolutely stirred-fried, hot-buttered, sauteed trash with a little oil put on it. I don't care that he played every game. I'm looking at his production. And Joel Bitonio's production over the last 2 years have been putrid. Okay? And then you have the saga of DeJuan Jones. Okay? DeJuan Jones could not stay healthy. He did not look very good at the left tackle position. So, but all reports, I saw Cleveland Browns Daily, and they had DeJuan Jones on Cleveland Browns Daily. He's lost more weight, okay, which I think that was DeJuan Jones's biggest problem. DeJuan Jones is 6'8", 6'9", but he was close to 400 pounds. That's a wear and tear on your body. No wonder he couldn't stay healthy. Now he says he's almost down to 360. He wants to get down to about 350. Okay. He's 6'9", guys. So he's not going to be 200 pounds. So 360, if he can get down, I would love to see him at 340. Me, personally. I think if DeJuan Jones is at 340, then at 6'9", then yeah. And here's the thing, DeJuan Jones is not trash. Ask TJ Watt if DeJuan Jones is trash. Because when they played the Pittsburgh Steelers, when DeJuan Jones was at right tackle, TJ Watt was absolutely locked up. Go back and watch when DeJuan Jones played against TJ Watt. He owned him to a point where the Pittsburgh Steelers had to move him around on the defensive line to get him away from DeJuan Jones. You think I'm lying? Go ahead and look up the Pittsburgh Steelers when DeJuan Jones played with the Cleveland Browns. Watch it. Okay? So out of that entire line, DeJuan Jones was the youngest, but he was injury prone. Now, DeJuan Jones will be back. I don't think he's going to play left tackle. That was not a good thing for him. I think DeJuan Jones is a natural right tackle. Okay? But back to Andrew Berry. I don't know what you guys want from him. Okay? Now, is he going to address the wide receivers in the draft? Yes. As I sit here today, if you really ask me, do I believe that he's going to use the number 6 pick? No. I believe that Andrew Berry is going to trade down and he is going to stockpile picks. Now, the latest thing, and that's one of our subjects is the Browns trading down. There's a proposed trade by the Dallas Cowboys where the Dallas Cowboys would give the number 12 and number 20 pick for the number 6 pick and I believe the 39th pick. The question that has been asked is, would you do it? You know, everybody's asking if you were the Browns, would you do it? So for me, it's very simple. I want the 12, I want the 20, and I want a high pick for 27th draft. That's me. I'm not saying it's got to be a first round pick. It can be a second round pick, but it's got to be a high second round pick. If I'm going to trade down 6 spots, and I do believe that the Browns are going to trade down. I don't know necessarily if it's going to be with Dallas, but from all reports that I got, the Cowboys really love Caleb Downs. And they believe if Caleb Downs is there at 6, they want to go get him. So, and Andrew Berry has had a history of, if he is not sold on top 10 guys that are put in the top 10, that he'll trade down. He's done it before. So there are a lot of wide receivers, Makai Lemon, out of USC, Casey Concepcion out of Texas A&M, just coming from the top of my head. There are other wide receivers in the draft. And so because for me, and I've said this, if you draft someone at number 6, they have to be a day 1 starter. So if you get a Monroe Freeland, the tackle out of Georgia, with number 6, he's got to be a day 1 starter. If you grab a Tyson Proctor, left tackle out of Alabama, he's got to be a day 1 starter. And for me, watching Monroe Freeling's film, watching Proctor's film, I'm not sold that those gentlemen are day 1 starters for the Cleveland Browns. I've said that. And I would not pick a lineman at number 6. I'm listening to everybody talk about, well, if they're there at 6, then you go get them at 6. If that lineman is there at number 6, then you use the number 6. To me, that is misusing your capital. Like I said, if it's not an Orlando Pace, if it's not an Anthony Munoz, then I'm not drafting them at number 6. Okay? Mason Graham last year at number 5, to me, was a reach. Now, Mason Graham is serviceable. I think he's going to turn out to be a pretty good player. But here's the thing with Mason Graham. He was a day 1 starter at number 5. He was a day 1 starter on the Cleveland Browns defensive line. My point is, if you're going to draft someone at the number 6, they better be a day 1 starter. We don't need any developmental projects. And when you look at Monroe Freeling's film, when you look at Proctor's film, they're both developmental linemen. Now, George Warhol is the offensive line coach for the Browns, very well respected throughout the NFL. If you grab a lineman, he's going to turn the lineman into somebody special. I believe that. I've heard a lot of great things about him. I'm just not drafting my lineman at number 6. Because to me, you have several different linemen down the line. You have Mark Schlerer's son, who's a guard. You have that guard out of Penn State, who is possibly the best lineman in the draft. So I understand you spent money on the line, but now I can take one of those hybrid guys who's played guard and tackle. If I draft that guy out of Penn State, then, and I just can't pronounce his name, y'all. He has a difficult name to pronounce, but I think it's Ione, his first name. But if you draft him, and take one of those tackles and kick him out, and you move DeJuan Jones to right tackle, you might have something. Because, see, our line, to me, has to be a group of maulers. Now, don't get me wrong. You know, these guys did not have great track records prior to coming to the Cleveland Browns. However, everybody needs a change of scenery. And it could be a whole heck of a lot better than the offensive line that we had last year, where Joe Flacco, Dylan Gabriel, and Shedeur Sanders ran for their absolute lives. When I looked at that offensive line last year, it was better off just having one guy snap the ball like playing flag football. Snap the ball, have all the defensive linemen count to 5 1,000, and then come. That's how bad it was. So I do see the Browns trading down and stockpiling picks and loading up. But for those that think that the Browns are not going to win this year, I'm going to give you a phrase that I normally give on 3 the Hard Way. Au contraire, mon frère. Okay? I believe that they're going to win more games than people think. And it's going to shock you. But it won't shock me. Now, I'm not saying they're going to win the division. I'm not saying they're even going to win the AFC North. But what I'm saying is they're not going to be in last place. Because when you look at Cincinnati, Cincinnati has a good offense. Their defense is garbage. When you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think people are giving Pittsburgh too much credit because they don't even know who their quarterback is. Okay. And if you bring in 25, y'all know how old Aaron Rodgers is. You bring him in one more year. Now they did, they got the wide receiver out of Indianapolis they traded for. So they got some quality wide receivers. Okay. And hopefully, and TJ Watt will be back. Hope he'll be healthy. But Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh. And now you got a new coach. He's got some big shoes to fill, And I understand, I don't want to really get into Pittsburgh. I really don't care. I don't think Pittsburgh's that great. I think Baltimore is smoke and mirrors. I don't think they're going to be any better. I think they're going to be the same. Now, Baltimore will probably win the division, but the Browns could be second or third in the division. I could see that. Okay. And I know folks thinking I might be a homer, but I'm just like from top to bottom. I think they can compete with Pittsburgh. I think they can compete with Cincinnati. I think they can compete with Baltimore. I just think Baltimore's personnel is probably more experienced. Okay. But I think the AFC North is going to be a dogfight, period. Okay. All right, let me take a quick break here and let me hype up 3 the Hard Way, man. Listen, do y'all know that I am a proud member of 3 the Hard Way Sports Talk? And 3 the Hard Way Sports Talk, man, we're on YouTube on Mondays. You'll see the episode on our newest episodes on Monday. It's me, of course, me. But the superstars is my man L Train Lionel Jones and the captain Terrence Austin, man. And we're just Cleveland guys who talk Cleveland sports, and we enjoy talking Cleveland sports. All right, we have a good time talking Cleveland sports. So tune in to 3 the Hard Way Sports Talk on YouTube. Check us out on Mondays. All right. We are talking about, we're really trying to get into possibly going live. We're getting into that. We're looking into that, having a good time, man. Our viewership is building, and we're just looking for more. So if you have not tuned in or subscribed to 3 the Hard Way, I double dog dare you. Jump on to 3 the Hard Way Sports Talk. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Come join the 3 the Hard Way Nation. All right. And have a good time. And when you're done with that, then if you have not subscribed to the Locker Room, then go ahead and subscribe, like, comment. Y'all know I'm for all the smoke. I don't have no problem with it. All right. because my motto is you may not like what I'm saying, but you will listen. So after I'm done here, I want you to go and take your little fingers and press the little button over there on YouTube and subscribe. And then right here on the Locker Room, subscribe. So subscribe to 3 the Hard Way and then subscribe to the Locker Room. All right. I appreciate it. All right. Let's switch over to the Cavaliers real quick. Not a whole lot with the Cavs. The Cavs locked up the number 4 position in the playoffs. They had a home and home with the Atlanta Hawks. I was about to say the Atlanta Braves. But the Guardians are playing the Braves. But the Atlanta Hawks. So the Cavs won at Rocket Mortgage the other night, and then they lost last night to the Hawks. CJ McCullough went nuclear in the first half. He scored 22 in the first half. I think he ended up with like 28 in this, he ended up with 28 total. I knew he would cool off because CJ McCullough is up in age. Don't get me wrong. He wanted Cleveland on. So, but the Cavs, really, this is a Minimowski game. Donovan Mitchell didn't play. Sam Merrill didn't play. Jared Allen didn't play. So, I mean, James Harden did. It was, Jalen Tyson is back. And so it was really, I really think that the Cavaliers used this kind of like a tune-up game because Atlanta's fighting for the playoffs. And so they really had more to lose than the Cavaliers. So you could see the Cavs, they played, but it really didn't matter. I think the score was 124 to 105, something like that. But they have a game tomorrow. The final game of the season is against the Washington Wizards. I am anticipating that nobody of any superstar ilk is going to play in that game. No Donovan, no Jared Allen, no Evan Mobley, no James Harden. I'm not expecting any of that. I'm expecting Dennis Schroeder, Keon Ellis, Jalen Tyson, maybe Max Strus. I'm not anticipating a whole lot. Dean Wade. I'm really not, because that game really does not matter. And as the Cavaliers have managed, they've managed to keep the team healthy, because now going into the playoffs, everybody is healthy, maybe except Jared Allen, but they're going to monitor Jared Allen. Okay. So my question is, do we believe that the Cavaliers are ready? I talked about it last week. I am still concerned about their defensive 3-point defense. Too many open shots, guys getting caught in crossfire. But they're going to find out who they are going to be playing against by the end of, I believe, next week. And so let's look at the standings for the play-in tournament, shall we? You got the Oklahoma City Thunder is the number 1 seed. Okay, they're going to play the winner of the play-ins. So your play-ins in the Western Conference, you have the Clippers, you have the Warriors, you have the Phoenix Suns against the Portland Trailblazers. Right now, whoever wins that, one will play the Thunder, the other will play the Spurs. Then you have the 4-5 matchup, which is the Lakers and the Rockets. And I think that is going to be a great matchup. Hopefully Luka will be healthy at that time. And so you're going to have, the 2 old war horses in LeBron James and Kevin Durant going at it. The Nuggets versus the Timberwolves, I hate to say it, shout out to my man L. Trainey, a Minnesota Timberwolves guy. If the Nuggets are healthy, I do not see the Timberwolves beating the Nuggets in the series. That dude, Jokic, is still one of the best players in the NBA. And the thing is he's not fast. He's not super strong, not incredibly athletic, but he's such a savvy basketball player. All right. Then, of course, you got Wembanyama and the Spurs. That Spurs culture, that Popovich culture is still there. So you can't count them out. I said that in the Western Conference Finals, I see the Thunder and the Spurs, and I'd pay money to see that. Shifting over into the Eastern Conference, you have the Hornets who are going to play the Heat, and then you have the Magic playing the Sixers. You know, and then in your seedings, you have the Pistons will play the 8th seed, the Celtics will play the 7th seed. That 4-5 matchup right now is the Cavaliers and the Hawks. All right. The 3 and 8 matchup is the Knicks and the Raptors. Now, that could possibly change. The Raptors could fall, could go up to the 5th seed and knock the Hawks down. The Hawks have to win their last game, okay, to settle that. The Cavaliers, if they really wanted to, they kind of had a chance to take over the Knicks. But I truly believe that the Cavs wanted to stay in that 4th seed because the possibility of them playing the Hawks and that they possibly would not see the Celtics until the Eastern Conference Finals. So they could play the Hawks and beat the Hawks and then have to play the Pistons. And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I'm not afraid of any team, but I'm definitely not afraid of the Detroit Pistons. Not. Because outside of Cade Cunningham, they don't have any shooting. Okay? They don't have any shooting. So I'm not concerned about the Detroit Pistons. I no disrespect to the Pistons because defensively, J.B. Bickerstaff has got them at another level. But offensively, it's a J.B. Bickerstaff team because J.B. is not a really good offensive coach. He's a great defensive mind, okay? But he's not a really good offensive coach. So the Cavaliers are sitting in a pretty good seat. Now, it's up to them whether they want to execute this year or not. But I do give Kenny Atkinson credit. The fact of it has gotten these guys to the finish line and they are healthy. All right. So I'm looking forward to the playoffs that's coming down the line. Switching real fast, the Guardians play the Atlanta Braves today. They are 8-6 in the Central Division. They are first. It's early in the season. They're playing pretty well. They did lose to the Braves yesterday. They lost 11-5. They play them today. So I really want to see, and I'm really impressed with the pitching is beginning to come around. Tanner Bybee, I believe, is still on IR. If he is on IR, I know he hurt himself the one game. Gavin Williams, I still believe Gavin Williams is the absolute ace on that Cleveland Guardians squad. I think he's an ace. And so, but love what I'm seeing. Jose Ramirez is Jose. You know what I mean? And so I've got to figure out Kyle Manzardo. Manzardo is way below the Mendoza line. I don't even think that guy's hitting at 100 yet. Okay, you might want to think about sending Kyle Manzardo to AAA, letting him get his mind right and bringing him back. Because offensively, he's not helping this team at all. You know, of course, Hosey, Quan, you know what I mean, Gabriel Arias. I mean, the team is going to be pretty good. All right. So they played the Atlanta Braves today, and we'll see if they can split. All right. All right. So before I go to my coach's rant, I want to prepare folks, you know, because this coach's rant kind of has been a buildup. And what I mean by buildup is because I've been watching this for so long that now I've gotten nauseated with it. And because I've gotten nauseated with it, I'm about to sum it all up like this. And I know that these individuals are way up in terms of, you know, podcasting and things of that nature. And I don't mean to speak negatively when it comes to this subject, but I have to, because being an African American man, you know, starting my hand in this sports podcasting realm, I have the ability to disagree with people, and I do it a lot. I disagree with a lot of takes that people have, but that does not mean that I hate you. And so I'm prefacing my comments by saying we have to stop in this media realm and tearing each other down as African American men or as black men. We need to stop tearing ourselves down. And why am I saying this? So I just seen the latest beef between Matt Barnes, and Matt Barnes had one. He made some comments with Stephen A. Smith, and then him and Patrick Beverly have been getting into it. And shout out to Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson, their show, All the Smoke. I love their show. Love it. I absolutely love what they do. And Matt Barnes has always been a G. He always says what he feels, and he says what he feels what he says. Steven Jackson as well, and I've seen Pat Beverly's show. I saw, of course, I watched Stephen A. Smith and, with him and Jason Whitlock and all that. I saw D.L. Hughley make a statement, saying that, Stephen A. Smith won, he called it the Coonery Award and all that. This is the stuff that I'm talking about. In society today, we as men are having a problem because we want to keep tearing each other down. It's okay to disagree. Okay? It's all right to disagree, but the constant tearing of each other down, for what? What sense does this make? What sense does it make? Okay, so Jason Whitlock and Stephen A. Smith have issues with each other. I've always been the type of individual that if you have an issue with me, then let's sit down and let's talk about it. Or at the worst case, if we can't sit down and talk about it, then privately, hey, we can go behind the closed door and do what we need to do. But this constant bickering over social media, this constant bickering when it comes to sports talk, this constant bickering, to me, it just makes people on the outside look at us as if we have no sense. And it's not saying that what Matt Barnes said was incorrect. It's not saying that what Patrick Beverly said was incorrect. It's not saying that what Jason Whitlock or Stephen A. Smith is saying is incorrect. What I'm saying is, as a young man, and I ain't too young, but in this social media field, I'm very young. My thing is, as a man, let's have a conversation and let's talk about our differences, instead of going and do it privately. It's so many times that I've had to go on social media and tell people, stop putting your business out on social media because it makes you look foolish. It makes people have to decide what side they want to be on. Listen, I think All the Smoke is entertaining. I think Steven Jackson is entertaining. I think Matt Barnes is entertaining. I love their commentary. Patrick Beverly, I think Patrick Beverly in instances says some things that make sense. These are guys that's been in the league. Carmelo Anthony, love his podcast, okay? Because these are guys that's been in the trenches. I love it. But I also understand that there's people on the opposite side. And not those people that I've spoken, there are others. But there's some people on the opposite side that say things because they want clicks. And I'm not saying that because, these individuals. What I'm saying is, let's clean it up, guys. Let's clean it up. Let's not constantly get into this banter in the public eye when you have people who look up to you guys. People who listen and who take honest in what you're saying. Because even though you don't think people are paying attention, people are seriously paying attention. And some of the people who are paying attention just want to see your demise. So what I'm saying is, and my coach's rant is this: gentlemen, if we got issues with each other, it's okay. If we need to sit down and talk about it, Let's talk about it. But I'm not going to publicly humiliate you, and I hope you wouldn't do the same to me. I hope that we can go break bread, we can air out our differences, and we can move on so that we can give the people what they really want, which is good, understanding, entertaining conversation when it comes to the world of sports. And that is my coach's rant. Listen, guys, I'm out of time. I got to get out of here. All right. Listen, I'm going to be here every Saturday at 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. I don't know what time that is in your time zone, but you're smart enough to figure it out. If you have not subscribed to the Locker Room, I triple dog dare you to go over to YouTube and type in the Locker Room 34 and like, comment, and subscribe and share. All right. Please enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Make your day. Don't let your day make you. And as I always say, love on somebody. Tell somebody that you love them. Don't always assume that they know. I'll see you later.
Have reached the home of Robert and Dolores Young. Please feel free to leave a message and time of call. Have a blessed day. Goodbye.